not just the reading part. Every single one is affected. And not only that, the philosophy of open, the actions that you need to do in order to be open makes a lot of work, additional work, than the one we are used to be doing when we don't care about openness. So lots of things that you need to be doing in openness and lots of work that you have to be extra effort in order to be open. And one other thing that is essentially openness brings, in order to be able to serve openness in many parts of the research life cycle, the publication, the nature of a publication, what a publication means, changes. The publication, the way we know it currently, is a piece of text. No, it's okay. We are open. The publication, this is really warm. I was planning on taking it off when I would talk about ACM Open, but it is really warm, so I'll get rid of it now. It's a piece of text, and with some pictures, some tables, and so on and so forth. But this is not open. It doesn't give you all the information that I said we need to be keeping when we're open. So the author should be a prime entity, not just a name on a piece of paper. The presentation should be part of the publication. Educational materials that may come out of that. But certainly the hardware you use, the software you use, the data that you use as input, the data that you produced, what software you used, with what data is input, what data is output. Of course, citations of a paper and so on. All these things should not be just text on a piece of paper or on a PDF. Are entities that should be kept, and that whole knowledge graph, if you want, is the new definition of publication. Should be live, should be extended, and so on. This is what openness requires, and thanks to our technology, we can move in this direction. Has ACM moved in this direction? No. Has IEEE moved in this direction? No. Has the scientific community moved in this direction? No. But you see glimpses of it. And certainly this is the direction that we need to go to. Okay. How many of you now, when you raise your hand, I know what open science is. What I described as open science was what you had in mind when you raised your hand to begin with. Okay. It's fewer, but certainly a good percentage compared to elsewhere when I present things. Good for you, kudos, USP. Now, why in the world do we care about open science? Our world was fine. So here is a research and the hypothesis again. Typically, the researcher writes a proposal, usually some public funder. Occasionally there is, and when the proposal is accepted, dollars, it can be Brazil, reais, whatever, but this is generic, gets to the researcher, and then the researcher goes through the life cycle that I talked about, and eventually comes up with a publication. Whatever happens in here, nobody sees. It's all hidden. Don't look at my dirty laundry. Okay, this is what I can do that. And we use these things, the institution and the scientific community where this belongs in are very important for the researcher, because we use these things to glorify the researcher. Okay, you see my perfect, you see? Okay, a glow around the researcher. That's how the researcher is evaluated, by the publications. But this, having all this opaque and nobody able to see, there's very weak collaboration among researchers. No reproducibility. Where is the data? Where is the software? Where is this? And rarely no reuse, essentially. There is also industry. By being this way, there is weak collaboration between industry and academia. When a research, an industry, how can they know if what you produce is good for you? There is some collaboration, obviously, but very hard technology transfer. Universities all over the world are trying to do technology transfer. Again, I'm exaggerating with a no, but this is essentially the case. And last but not least, let's not forget society. Society is the one who is paying with the tax money to the public funder, who gives the researcher the money to do all these things, for them to be glorified, careless about what impact to society has this money on society. Therefore, no transparency, no accountability to the one who eventually paid, and no trust. Society doesn't trust scientists, and more, unfortunately, because of certain characters, they trust scientists less. Just a few, not completely current, but even the current numbers are very similar. There is no reproducibility. Survey, about 10 years back, things are even worse now. In various types of sciences, how much someone else's, I was able to reproduce your research, and how much I was able to reproduce my research 6 months or a year from now. As a computing scientist, I belong here in physics and engineering. I don't know where you're coming from, but wherever you are, you can see, okay, let's look at physics engineering. 70% of the published work cannot be reproduced, and more than 50%, the same person cannot reproduce the research. This is not science, okay? This is not what we want. There is also harking. How many of you know what harking is? Okay, I'll come back, but essentially this is the research life cycle. This is this hypothesis you generate. You get some results, and then you try to interpret the results by hacking. Okay, it has nothing to do with the original hypothesis, okay? It's a nice picture coming later. Also, publishing is a very big business. And when it's closed, this is, it reaches up to 24. With the COVID, the money that the private publishing won dropped a little bit. It's approaching 30 billion, this is a B, $billion a year. It includes books, but a lot of it, a huge percentage of this is research. Where are the researchers? Why should we be making such business to private people? And then you have mistrust of science. This is one famous politician's quotes on climate change. I don't think it's a hoax, okay, but it's freezing in New York. Where is global warming? And other nonsense like this. And the society doesn't trust scientists. How many of you have seen this movie? Okay, it's a great movie. Look at it. It captures reality in an extravagant way, but it's great. Not only the scientific community, but also the UN is asking for openness in order to serve, especially UNESCO, which is the educational and scientific part primarily of the UN. And open science has a whole bunch of elements that you have to look into. These little cute circles are some of the things that I put around in the life cycle, in the life cycle there. And there are governmental mandates to be open of various forms. More or less the entire world is covered, certainly Brazil and others. And okay, does it pay off? Okay, you present, or no collaboration. Does it help for reuse? The COVID was a very important thing. When COVID hit, all publishers, all research infrastructures, for a period of time, opened up their data, opened up their publications, including the commercial publishers. And they said, we need to find a vaccine. Here is all the data. Study it as much as possible. And the fact that we found vaccines in about a year, which is a world record, nothing else can be compared to that. That's not the only reason a lot of money were put into that work. But openness, everyone is recognizing, helped a lot in arriving at that. And then there are various studies that show the social impact, the financial impact, and so on that openness has. You can go and check this. How many of you are convinced that open science is good? You're not convinced? The two of you? Okay, good. So, how do we approach open science? So I'll go around this, and I'll give you certain elements of the philosophy, the way of thinking in some of the stages of the life cycle. I won't go it by order. Remember that we have this, open access, open publication, scholarly communication elements, open reviews, revealing hypotheses and intermediate data, and all that. The society started to apply open science primarily from open access, reading material on the point of use. I won't present it in this order because now there are efforts all over. I'll present it in some flow, bumping from one stage to the other, because I think it's important, and if I need to cut something, I can cut it on the less. So I'll start on the open publication, open scholarly communication. How do we publish? What is the flow? And what I'll describe here, it comes from the scientific field that is called scholarly communication field, okay, that studies the processes. It's a social science, information science. It is not technical. Why are we publishing? We are publishing for 4 reasons. One, to say, hey, I'm Yannis, here's what I did. Second, to validate. A bunch of people with peer review say, okay, what Yannis did is good. 3, to distribute it, let the world know, hey, world, see, Yannis did this that others felt is good, read about it. And 4th, 100 years from now, Yannis's grandchildren to be able to go back and see what their grandfather did, archiving. So these are the 4 reasons. As you'll see, I'll split the 1 and 4 from 2 and 3, but you'll see why. This is the publishing as we knew it until recently, where you had to print the publication and do it. You have author, and then the author writes a paper, the name is there, so you register. This is stage number 1. Then you send it for review. Eventually, the reviewer hopefully says yes. The set of reviewers, you validate it, number 2. Then the final version is sent to the world, and the world sees the paper. Doesn't see everything else, it sees the paper. That's distribution. And eventually, you put it in some archive, so the world sees it until the end of time. These are the 4 stages. Now, when we had printed publishing, one single organization had to do all this. Like Springer, like ACM, like IEEE, like Elsevier. One organization. But when we go into electronic publishing, which is what we've been doing for the past, I don't know, 10, 20 years, a different way of doing things is emerging called overlay publishing, which says, well, you don't send something for review. You may send, after you register and you say, this is what I did, directly to an archive, to a repository. And then, whether by pull or a push process, it is being reviewed to get validation, and then it is disseminated, and the final version is re-archived. But 1 and 4 happen first, and 2 and 3 fall later. And now, because this is the case, it's already archived forever, you don't need to have the same organization. You can have this part at an archival organization like Archive. How many of you know Archive? Okay. And then the validation and distribution of this can be done by a publishing organization, the best one, not for profit, being ACM, of course. Okay. So 2 different organizations. That's where we are going. And you can see many people saying, oh, I put in archive and this is my paper and so on. But this is not publication because it's missing the validation part. This is exposition publishing. And it could be that at some point, in the head of some people, we don't need validation. We'll put it out there, and whatever society, whatever the community say, it is fine. I don't need to go through a formal process. For me, extremely dangerous, except for certain cases. Open conferences. This is strengthened by open science, but what I'll describe can be motivated also independent of openness, even in the closed world. In the same fashion that I said there are 4 reasons why we publish, there are 3 reasons why we go to a conference. And this is the only part that is specific to computing. We are the only field that has the concept of a conference publication. No other field has this, but we do. Why do we go to a conference? To publish. The physicists and the social scientists are looking at us as if we came from Mars. To present, okay, like myself, I'm here, and blah, 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 slide, blah, 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 slide, okay, and then you just listen. And then to interact with people. That's why we go to conferences. Well, the way I split it, the 4 functions into 2 and 2, I want to split these 3 functions in 1, 1, and 1. They don't have to be done at a conference. So, conferences, publication. You start from Athens and you come all the way around the world to Brazil. I don't know if I hit Sao Paulo exactly there, but this is okay. Is Mato Grosso? Okay. All right, okay. To publish. Why in the world we have to go half the way around the world to say I published something? Okay. It makes no sense. Presentation. A canned presentation, okay. Why the paper, why can't the author have a video, okay, put it there? And the fact that you see me here, like this one, you know, in 3D, okay, fine, but there is a little bit, okay, the interaction, we breathe the same air, we'll drink the same beer at some point, whatever it is, but that's, you achieve 90% with 95% of this with a video. Again, you don't have to come to Brazil to present something in a canned way. The interaction is different. The author is there with a paper that they published somewhere or the idea that they had, and that's the only place where you meet people. And Zoom and Teams and so on can be good for transactional things, but not for creative things, not for co-creation, exchange of ideas, circumstantial ideas. Serendipity can only be done around a table, in a panel, in front of a poster, with glasses of beer or wine or caipirinhas in the hand. So open science pushes this, and I think computing science, as the only one who has this weird thing, needs to go and separate the different paper or even just research work-life paths. We can be putting things in archive, and this already is not a publication, it's just exposition. I'm exposing the work. I'm not publishing, okay? And then if you want to be published, you go through the formal process like from ACM, and you get, and this is given to a journal. You don't need to travel anywhere. And if you want to talk about it, of course, not only papers, but also data sets, presentations, other things that I mentioned in what a publication is. And if you want to present and you want a stamp, send a video and people say, oh, this is a good presentation. Or it's a bad presentation, because I'm sure many of us have been in conferences, great work, and the presenter is you know, to be put in firing squad and be killed, the kind of presentation, okay? Or very bad paper, but then the presenter is good, and so on. So, and then, yes, you come to Brazil, okay, because someone invited you, because you wrote a good paper or you presentation, or because you are very, very famous like Viterbo, and then you give a presentation and you talk about your work in a whole bunch of formats that exist, but not the canned presentation, blah, 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 slide, blah, 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 slide. Interaction. We need to separate these 3 things. Only come to Brazil to interact with people. We only publish in journals. It will take time, but I think this is the direction that we need to go. And open science puts even more pressure for us to do this. And of course, the environment will be very happy with us traveling less and so on. Let's look at open processes a particular one for publication, open reviewing. By the way, if there are any questions, interrupt me at any point. I don't have to go through all my slides if there's good interaction, because I'm in Brazil and we can interact and ideas can be exchanged. By the way, let me mention that I'm giving this presentation in various places. I'm not changing my picture depending on where I go. I always show Brazil. Okay, it's one of my favorite places. So here's an author, here's a paper, you write it, goes to a review, the reviewer writes a review, and then if it's accepted, the world knows about it. If it's rejected, it stays with the author, and the review goes to the garbage can, whether accepted or rejected. So now, we used to have, in most sciences, certainly in computing, what we called single blind, but it's not going to talk about single blind, it's single anonymous, okay? Because blind people have nothing to do with this. And there was an asymmetry. The reviewer knew who the author was, and of course the paper and the review. The author knew only the paper, the reviewer didn't know the reviewer. And the problem with that is, of course, that the reviewer could be very bad, hidden behind anonymity, and look, my perfect animation, the review could be really very bad, okay? And if the paper is accepted, the world, all they know is the paper and the author, nothing about the reviewer or anything else. Now, for 10, 15, 20 years now, there's a feeling, let's be symmetric. The reviewer should not know who the author is. So we went into double anonymous, and now we have a symmetric case. Nobody knows every person. Of course, this has been really circumvented in many ways by people with unethical behaviors, but let's stick to the theory, okay? Now, the reviewer cannot hide if they have something with the author, but still they could have woken up, have slept on the wrong side one night, wake up in the morning, write a review that is not very good. And then again, the paper, all we see is the author, nothing else. Now, but we went from single anonymous in one direction to double. Open science says no, go in the other direction, zero anonymous. Everything is in the open. The world knows who the author is, who the reviewer was, what the reviewer, what the reviews were, and so on. And nothing goes to the garbage can. Now the reviewer have to behave. Their name will be openly to the world, and so on. The review must be good, but now you have the other problem that the author can be bad. What? You wrote a bad review for my paper. I'll see. The next time you'll ask for a recommendation letter or I'll review your paper, you'll see what will happen to you. Okay? So there are issues to deal with open reviewing. But also this opens up, given this, that you may have a meta reviewer that reviews the review, because the review is now a scientific contribution in the sphere of what the paper is talking about. And then you can have a meta reviewer, we learned recursion in a second semester or something like this. And then, of course, the author can respond, and you have a scientific discourse that is open. It's not anymore author and reviewer. It is a piece of paper that someone first wrote, and then there are commenters and other authors jumping in. Different versions of the paper, final version, you have an open scientific discourse. Like Heisenberg and Einstein were exchanging letters every month or two, discussing things. Now it can be done much more actively in a different scale, but this is open reviewing and helps science progress. And it's not a one-way street. And it has all the good benefits with a few dangers in terms of the quality of what is happening. So, yes. Can I come back to this? Okay. This is a presentation that I will not use a word that I will not say it, because if I say it, I will use it. Okay. But after I'm done, I'll come back and I'll use the words that I promised I will not use. Okay. He said it, I did not say it. That's not okay. So, as I said, this is the ideal. And if it was an angelic world, we should be going in this way. But because people have feelings, negative feelings, and so on, this is the direction, but we have to have some guardrails and some precautions, especially to protect the weak compared to the strong, whatever weak and strong is, you know, the young, the junior people to the senior people, and so on. People also talk about open research pre-registration. This is one of the most extreme things. And it has to do with, usually, as you saw, all this is opaque. All you see is a publication in the end. But people say, no. When you start and you have a hypothesis, reveal your hypothesis. I'm going to study this. And I'm going to study it with this methodology. And this is the data that I will use. And after you do some work, you pop up and say, oh, here's some results that I got in the middle. I'm not done with my work, but here it is. What are you talking about? You reveal your smart idea, it will be stolen. Not many ideas are worth stealing, okay? So, and if an idea is worth it, usually you have to shove it down the throats of people until they understand it and so on. So the philosophy is, reveal it. What's the problem? So these are the aspects of this. And again, with my fantastic animations that by now you're used to them. You have the researcher, the hypothesis, the method, the data, blah, 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 blah. They come up with results. If they're not good results, thrown in the garbage, then go back to the research, even to the hypothesis itself or the methods or other things. Eventually, when the paper is good and sent out, the author, the researcher knows everything that has happened, but the world only sees the final result. Whatever happened in the middle, certainly they don't know it from the beginning. This is harking. You shoot in the dark, and then where you see that you hit, you say, oh, that was my target. That's what I meant, okay? It is hypothesis after, after research, after results are known, okay? So you have a hypothesis, you come up with results that are unrelated, and then you say, what hypothesis could I have had that with these results would be satisfying this hypothesis or refuting the hypothesis? And then in some sense, this is healthy also. I mean, a bunch of my research that I have done, a bunch of my papers have nothing to do with where I started. So it's not necessarily bad, but there are some negativity of knowing, because if you reveal a hypothesis and you failed, the world should know about it so that they don't do the same thing again and again and again and again. And in the open science research dissemination, if you reveal everything, the world should not know just the paper, but the entire thing. Nothing is gone to the garbage can. Even your cycles are in the hypothesis and so on. And even there are organizations that allow you to go and register your hypothesis and your methodology and so on ahead of time. So people believe so much, and there are thousands of registrations there. So it's not something in the mind of someone. Open research evaluation. As we said, currently, with this being opaque, everyone is evaluated by their publications. That's how they're glorified. But openness asks for something else. It's not just the papers you produced. It's not about you. Your evaluation, your climbing the ladder of success and glory and so on, as a researcher, it's fine, but that's not the goal. You should not be doing work for your egotistical reasons of advancing your career. This is part of it, but that's not the thing. The thing is, what is the impact you have to the community? But if you're asked to be open, the researcher needs to work a lot. There is work involved. In addition to doing the research and writing the paper and so on, you have to use public infrastructures. You have to do persistent IDs in everything that you produce so that it can be reusable, it can be open. You have written code that you've used in your research that you know nobody else will look into it. But the minute you have to share your code with someone, you spend a whole bunch of time cleaning up, putting comments and so on, and someone will see what I did with the pointers. Yeah, so okay, so the dirty laundry, okay, if it is to be open, it requires a lot of work and a lot of things that need to be done. And researchers currently will say, no, I don't want openness. You'll evaluate me with, with the number of my publications, the number of citations and so on. If I have to spend time on this garbage, okay, I'll have fewer papers. I will not be promoted. I will not get the next award and so on. So we need to think in open science calls for new evaluations of research and researchers, okay? Excellence, yes, but and openness. And let me not read everything, but we're saying, okay, the delta publications and epsilon contributions, are bad. But in this day and world, especially with a particular community that is related to your comment, okay, but everyone else is following through, okay, you sneeze, you write about it. You sneeze again, you write about it. And then I have 100 write-ups in this past month, okay? Okay, you want to let the world know about it, expose it, fine. You sneezed here, you sneezed there, fine. But when it comes to be evaluated, you'll be evaluated on your N top publications, the ones that really made a huge contribution. And other elements that we can look into. In Europe, there is hundreds of institutions that are looking into this and how it can be done. In the US, there is an effort to convince deans and university administrators and funders of how people should be evaluated. In the open science world, we have to stop this paper diarrhea that exists. This is a technical term, okay? We have to stop counting, go back to reading again, read a few things that make sense that the researcher is. And finally, and most important, open access. It is open in the point of use, free in the point of use, open reading. As we said, it used to be payment, but now the payment is here. The thing is, who should pay? And how much should pay, okay? I'll come back when I say a few things about ACM in the end. One of the things that I want to emphasize is that in order for all of this to work, no matter what science this is about, digital technologies, computer technologies are very important in this. Only our technology can make this happen, can support this. I have been involved and coordinating and leading in Europe, the European efforts for open science. There is the so-called European Open Science Cloud, which is about serving data openly and fairly, fair being findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. There are various clusters of infrastructures, thematic infrastructures, engineering infrastructures. I have been the coordinator of Open Air, Open Access Infrastructure for Research in Europe. Okay, good acronym. And Open Air, I won't go into this detail. It's a project that has been going on for 10 years. Now there's a legal entity that supports this. It collects various types of resources in order to create a knowledge graph, the Open Air Research Graph, that connects people, infrastructures, data sets, publications, funding agencies, institutions, and so on as true entities. Some numbers. There are more than 200 publications, more than 200 million publications, more than 200 funding agencies that are recorded. I'm sure there are some Brazilian ones there. I didn't have time to check. Almost 4 million research grants that are identified there and connected to the publications, to the people who got it, the institutions, and so on. Software, 100 million data sets, and more than 6.5 billion semantic links of various forms. It's a very rich research graph. How many of you know OpenAlex? Good, only one. Forget it. OpenAir is way better than OpenAlex. Okay, So check it out. And of course, we interact a lot with many international organizations outside of Europe. La Referencia is the Latin American organization with infrastructures. This is just for you. And for all Latin America, La Referencia is this link. And for various countries, and Brazil is the one that, this is the organization that connects to La Referencia. And for computing, Sol, I just learned that it's indexed by OASIS Brazil. Okay, and we are collaborating with Referencia a lot. So there may be avenues to discuss independent of ACM and so on. How many of you know ACM? Okay, good. Even that row raised the hand, so good. Okay, I just want to quickly read the mission of ACM. ACM is a global scientific and educational organization dedicated to advancing the art, science, engineering, and application of computing, serving both professional and public interests by fostering the open exchange of information and by promoting the highest professional and ethical standards. This was written, ACM is almost 80 years old. It didn't have this mission from the beginning. This is a mission of about 30 years ago that was written. They would not change a single iota in this. This is still it. And 30 years ago, before open science, open access existed, the word open was in the mission. Okay. And we have our crown jewel of our services and products, the ACM Digital Library. If you are in computing, whether you know it or not, you have used it extensively because you may have gotten into something in there from outside, from other paths and not through the digital library. And ACM Council, 5 years ago, it made a decision and it has come through. And all ACM publications and related research artifacts, so data sets, software, and so on, that have been deposited in the ACM DL are now fully openly available since the 1st of January 2026. No matter where you are, yes, this is the clapping time. No matter where you are, who you are, in what institution, if you're institutionalist, if you are in Antarctica, whatever, everything that belongs to ACM, because we index other things that we don't have licenses to give as content, only metadata, but if it is an ACM publication, you can freely access it. That's where we are. And let me say that if this is the digital library, someone reads the content, someone writes things that go into the content. It used to be that you had a paywall to read before open access. And the reader usually belongs to an institution, and the institution belongs to some country. And typically, one of the three had to pay, either individually or your institution or your country, to read. Now that the paywall has moved here, publishing, the authors are also usually in some institution, in some country, and we created ACM Open, where we have deals that institutions or whole countries pay, so that everyone doesn't have to put their hands in the pocket to do it. And if not, if you don't belong to an institution that is part of ACM Open, then you have to pay article processing charges like everyone else is doing. And I want to emphasize that ACM is the only organization, the only publisher of that scale and of that quality that offers this as symmetric to what used to be the case for reading, now for publishing as well. And also for people in underrepresented, difficult conditions or in really underdeveloped parts of the world, there are waivers that we apply. And the goal is for the author to have, to help the author. So those authors that aren't protected, we have a transition plan that this year, first of all, if you are in this category, our APCs are way below any other that offers an integrated corpus, not just a website with all the papers there, but an integrated corpus, lower than IEEE, but also I won't even talk about the commercial publishers. This is more than 3,000 institutions are now participating in ACM Open, so their individual people don't have to pay. And here's Brazil. 207, all public institutions are covered. by a deal that CAPES did with ACM. And so, obviously, all of you can publish with ACM without having to pay because the government paid. It's a 3-year deal, and in most cases, these are renewed, so you're there for life. Conclusions. Open science opens up the world. It's the best thing that can be done. That's the way to go because we owe it to society, we owe it to industry, and we owe it to ourselves to collaborate and advance our research in way together. It helps with collaboration. It helps with innovation. By the way, I'm wearing the ACM Open t-shirt, if you didn't notice, and it helps innovation. Okay. Okay, Viterbo, take a picture. When I point to the t-shirt. Come on, how long does it? Okay, good. And in unity there is strength. So this is a picture from yesterday when the leaders, some of the leaders of SPC, including the president of SPC and the vice president, Cristiano is here, Thais is not here with us. This is my face, and a whole bunch of parts of the ACM Council met here to see the interaction between SPC and ACM, not only for open science, but for many other things. And we continue the discussion this morning in campus in a great event. Moving ahead, open science, the interaction with SPC and ACM, it's all about a matter of trust. This is the most valuable currency that we have among people. And this is the picture on the web that I have found that captures in my mind in the most vivid way what trust is. And if you look at these people, the lowest guy, his body is shaped like an A. He's the most trustful guy. And if you see the way that the lady curves her body, it is like a C. And if you look at a little bit more carefully on this guy, his body is shaped like AM. So ACM is trust, trust is ACM. I am ACM, you be too. Yeah. Thank you.